I'm actually not going to blind you with science. And I do have a PowerPoint, hopefully coming. Hi, everyone. On Saturday, I was out at one of those Hands Across the Sands events to protest offshore drilling. Did anyone else go to one of those anywhere? A few of you? Okay, so some of you know it was really hot, right? And all I wanted to do was dive into the ocean. And it occurred to me that I was really lucky because I was in Delaware, and in Delaware you can dive into the ocean, but if you were on Pensacola Beach, where my friend Linda Young took this picture, you can. And there's a lot of places where you couldn't. And it led me to think about all of the people whose lives have been impacted by the deepwater drilling disaster, because they can't go in the water, it's affecting their livelihoods, and all the marine life that have been affected, and marine ecosystems that have been damaged, all because we've let big oil have its way with us and with our oceans. They have been controlling public opinion and public policy. And that's what you think about when you go down to the Gulf of Mexico and you think, how could this have happened? Well, this needs to end if we want to end our oil addiction. Even though the pusher wants us to take just one more hit, and the pusher wants us to think that the alternative to taking that one more hit is a long, slow, miserable economic death. As if our oil addiction wasn't just that. As if our oil addiction wasn't preventing us from moving to clean energy technology that we could then develop and export and build our economy with. Or as if our oil addiction hadn't just destroyed this great national treasure and this economic engine that was the Gulf of Mexico and possibly destroyed it for years to come. A couple of weeks ago, a colleague of mine, Mike Hirschfield, was testifying in the House, and he likened this idea that we're having this discussion of moving to a clean energy economy in the age of big oil to what if we were having the discussion of moving to the automobile revolution in the age of an imaginary big horse. Okay? Now, big horse wouldn't want that to happen. They would tell us this will destroy the fabric of society. What about all the guys that shovel manure and the blacksmiths and the veterinarians and the people who drive the horses? This is going to cost jobs. And big horse would do anything in its power to make sure that transition doesn't happen. Well, time has shown that, in fact, innovation revolutions do happen. Workers get repurposed. Now we have things like seatbelts and airbags. Two more examples of things the industry told us would destroy society and cost jobs. But now we have to tackle climate change. And we have to do it. We also have to prevent oil spills, future oil spills from happening. We have to make that big leap to clean energy technology, and we know it will be good for us. Look at the polls. 80%, 85, 90% of the public support clean energy. It's a no-brainer, right? But yet we're still entrenched in these arguments that seem to help nobody except for big oil. Why is that? What is big oil telling us? And why is there propaganda filling our minds and the minds of other voters? Big oil and their friends have proffered a seemingly never-ending trail of myths that people are believing about offshore drilling. That it will lower gas prices, that it will make us energy independent, that it's safe, that we can't get the energy anywhere else. We can only have jobs if we have offshore drilling. Oh, and if we stop drilling, that's going to mean we have to import more, and that means more tankers, and because of their self-professed fallibility, that means more tanker spills. They're not even veiled. I mean, they're direct threats, really. But the problem is none of them are true. The Energy Information Agency has shown clearly that even if we drilled the West Coast and the East Coast and the West Coast of Florida, it would only lower gas prices by 3 cents a gallon, and that's not even until 2030. They've shown, Energy Information Agency again has shown, that we can go from importing 60% of our oil to importing only 58% of our oil. Well, that's not energy independence. And that whole oil drilling is safe argument is, if you'll pardon the pun, totally gone up in smoke. We all know that's not true now. And it turns out clean energy creates 3 times more jobs than fossil fuels. So Oceana has called for a ban on offshore drilling. We've gotten a lot of support for it, but we've also gotten some pushback. Interestingly, a lot of that pushback is coming from places like the Gulf of Mexico region, where politicians are saying things like, this is a double whammy. First we get the oil dumped on us, and then you're going to take away all our jobs. Well, where are they getting that argument? Big oil. I mean, ironically, big oil is the one who has destroyed all those jobs in the Gulf of Mexico, probably the biggest job killer in the Gulf. But that's where they're getting their arguments. Now, if instead those politicians would come out and say, hey, I have an idea, let's build a clean energy manufacturing base in the Gulf. Let's channel all this concern about drilling, instead of asking for more drilling and more punishment, let's say, let's build a clean energy manufacturing base and create jobs. We can export that technology, build our economy, and it will never spill. So the question is, as we look at all these animals that have been impacted, do we really need to be drilling in the Gulf? How much are we really getting? We get about 8% of our oil from the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe we could develop 8% of that energy through clean energy. Let me give you a vision of a couple of options. Shipping. If we just increase shipping efficiency by 25%, we could save 108,000 barrels of oil a day. The drilling in the Gulf of Mexico gets us about 1.6 million barrels of oil a day, so that's what we're aiming for. But we get 108,000 by increasing shipping efficiency, and the International Maritime Organization says you can get from 25% to 75% increased efficiency. I'm taking the low end, and you can get that, according to IMO, without cost to the industry, because they save so much on fuel. If we look at homes that are still using oil heat and we converted 25% of them to electricity, we could save 213,000 barrels of oil a day. If we replace the oil that's being used to generate power with clean energy technology like offshore wind, 210,000 barrels of oil a day. And if we electrify just 10% of the cars on the road, we could save 500,000 barrels of oil a day. Advanced biofuels, I'm told, could get us more than what we're getting out of the Gulf of Mexico, but if we only developed 15% of it, and these are non-food crops like algae and switchgrass, that could get us another 500,000 barrels of oil a day. And so what you see is just these things. This is just one way to look at it, and there are a lot of different ways to look at it. We can get a lot of energy a lot of different ways, and we really don't need to be drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we do have to think about the electricity demand because we just moved cars and homes onto the grid. So we need to bring more energy into the grid in a clean way, and we can do that with offshore wind, onshore wind, solar, and other technologies. The DOE estimates we have about 20 gigawatts of offshore wind that we could develop by 2020. We've already got 35 gigawatts of onshore wind developed. We can double that. There's plenty of opportunity to bring energy in. That doesn't mean we need that oil. So we need to tell the pusher we're going clean, build that energy economy, and be the Saudi Arabia of clean energy technology. And I can't believe I'm going to close on time, but just to close, I want to close with a quote from a leader of a previous innovation revolution, because that's really what we're looking for here, and that's Henry Ford. And Henry Ford said, if I had asked my customers what they would want, they would have said, a faster horse. And what that tells us is we have to start thinking out of the box. We don't just want a faster SUV, right? Innovation is a powerful thing, but I don't know if it's ever been up against a force as powerful as big oil. It's powerful opposition. Those that benefit from the status quo have the resources to influence public opinion, and that's what drives public policy. But we have the final say as voters, and we need to make sure that we're heard. So let's stop listening to the myths and start talking about common sense solutions, take steps to break our oil addiction. And that starts with drawing a line in the sand on offshore drilling and prioritizing the development of clean energy technology.